So let's talk about Confucius, the man who ordered the world. We're going to dive into the real story, the man behind the myth.
Yeah, you've probably heard this one before, right? It does not matter how slowly you go, so long as you do not stop. It's classic Confucius. You see it on posters, in self-help books. It's the perfect little piece of wisdom from this ancient wise sage.
Okay, but here's the twist, and it's a big one. The man behind all these wise sayings, the guy whose ideas literally shaped civilizations for 2,500 years, well, he died believing he was a complete and total failure. And that incredible contradiction, that is the real story we're getting into today.
So, to really get to the bottom of who he was, we first have to tackle the legend. You know, the larger-than-life version of Confucius that most of us have in our heads.
And this is that image, isn't it? The wise old sage with the long, flowing beard, just calmly handing out profound truths, maybe from a misty mountaintop. He's this figure who's so revered he's almost like a god, the founder of this huge philosophy, Confucianism.
But the real story, well, it's way more down to earth. And honestly, it's surprisingly human. And it all kicks off with the name he was actually given at birth.
So, you have the myth on one side, sage, king, prophet. But the reality? It couldn't be more different. For starters, his name was Confucius. He came from a family that had seen better days, pretty low on the social ladder. He tried his hand at being a government official and, let's be honest, he wasn't very good at it. And get this, he never even claimed his ideas were new. He always said he was just a transmitter, someone trying to bring back the forgotten wisdom of the past.
And his name, Q, it wasn't some grand prophetic name. It literally means mound. And why? Well, the story goes it's because he was born with this weird bump on his head. I mean, it's such a small, quirky, human detail, and it just instantly brings this legendary figure crashing back down to earth.
And this quote, wow, it really drives home that massive gap between the myth and the man. A scholar once described him as looking more like a stray dog than a sage. And that's not just an insult. It's this powerful image of how people saw him back then. Think about it. Kind of lost, wandering from place to place, begging rulers to just listen to him, and getting the door slammed in his face time and time again.
So you have to wonder, why was he so desperate? What was driving him? To get that, you have to understand the world he lived in. And let me tell you, it was not a peaceful time for quiet thinking. It was an age of absolute chaos.
Okay, so the big picture is this. The Zhou dynasty, the ruling power for centuries, had pretty much disintegrated. The real power? It was in the hands of these ruthless warlords, each controlling their own little state, and they were always at war with each other. All the old rules, the traditions, the social glue holding everything together, it was all just crumbling. And Confucius's home state, Lu, it was a political dumpster fire.
And this chaos wasn't just some abstract political thing, it had a devastating human cost. There's this one incredible story that really paints the picture. Confucius and his students come across a woman just weeping by a grave. He asks her what's wrong, and she tells him a tiger killed her father-in-law here. Then it killed her husband, and now it just killed her son. So Confucius asks the obvious question, why on earth don't you leave? And her answer is just chilling. She says because here there is no oppressive government. He turned to his students right then and said, remember this, my friends. Oppressive government is fiercer and more to be feared than a tiger.
That was the problem he was obsessed with solving. So his philosophy? It's not just some nice, abstract set of ethics. No way. It was a practical, even radical, blueprint for how to rebuild a totally broken world piece by piece, starting with each and every person.
Right at the very heart of everything he taught is this idea called Ren. You can translate it as humanity or compassion or altruism. It's the core virtue, the good stuff you feel on the inside. And it's summed up perfectly in what we now call the Golden Rule, his version of it anyway. What you do not wish for yourself, do not do to others. Simple, but profound.
Okay, so if Ren is that inner compassion, that's great. But how do you actually make it real? How do you put it into action in the world? Well, that's where the next key idea, Li, comes in. Li is all about ritual, good conduct, propriety. And listen, this isn't just about stuffy grand ceremonies. It's about the small stuff too, the simple everyday etiquette, how you talk to your parents, how you treat your friends, how a leader treats their people. For Confucius, Li was the framework, the social grammar that let Ren actually exist in the real world. It was the glue holding it all together.
And these two ideas are part of a bigger system, 5 virtues that all connect. It's like a step-by-step guide. You start with Ren, that core humanity,
That feeling then leads to yi, which is righteousness, the ability to know what the right thing to do is. Then you put that into practice through li, your good conduct. Now, all of this has to be guided by ji, which is wisdom and knowledge. And what underpins the whole thing? Shin, trustworthiness, loyalty, integrity. See how it all links together? It's a path to becoming a better person, which is the only way, he thought, to build a better society.
So he had the blueprint, he definitely had the passion, but in his own lifetime, it was a spectacular, undeniable failure.
I mean, picture this. He spent more than a decade on the road, wandering from one state to the next, just trying to find one ruler, just one, who would listen and actually try his ideas. But nobody would bite. The warlords thought he was nuts, that his ideas about morality and kindness were just way too idealistic, maybe even a threat to their power. So he eventually just went home, broke and completely ignored, and he died at 72, absolutely certain that his entire life had been a waste.
But then, after he died, the most amazing thing started to happen. His reputation just grew, and grew, and grew. It started small. Soon after his death, he gets a nice, respectable title, Venerable Knee. Fast forward a few hundred years, boom, he's the exalted duke. By the 700s, he's not a duke anymore. He's the exalted king of culture. And it just keeps going, until by the 1600s, his official title is, and you gotta love this, the Great Completer, Ultimate Sage, Exalted First Teacher of Culture. I mean, the man who saw himself as the ultimate failure became, posthumously, the ultimate success. It's just incredible. And he never knew.
So the big question is, how? How on earth did this happen? How did the ideas of a guy who died thinking he was a nobody go on to literally shape entire civilizations?
Well, the answer, really, comes down to his students. See, Confucius himself never wrote a thing down. But his followers, his disciples, they adored him, and they painstakingly collected all his little sayings, his conversations, his lessons, and they compiled them into a book we now call the Analects. And in doing that, they saved his blueprint for humanity, a blueprint that spoke to this deep, universal need for order, for meaning, for a moral guide, especially when the world feels like it's falling apart. They made sure his ideas would live on long after he was gone.
And inside the Analects, you find this one passage that's just a beautiful summary of his own life's journey. It's not about winning or getting power. It's a story of lifelong learning and trying to be a better person. He charts his own progress, from setting his heart on learning at 15 to finally, at age 70, being able to follow his heart's desire without ever crossing the line. And that idea of life as a constant project of self-improvement became the model for millions of people for centuries to come.
And that very model, this intense focus on personal morality, on education, on creating social harmony, on doing your duty, it became the absolute foundation for government, for culture, for everyday life, not just in China, but across Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. We're talking millennia of influence. Just an absolutely mind-boggling legacy from a man who died believing he left nothing behind.
Think about his world for a second. Political chaos, institutions falling apart, deep social divisions. Sound familiar? And his answer wasn't to grab for more power or resort to violence. His answer was a radical, quiet call for each person to focus on their own integrity, to treat others with respect, because that was the only way to truly heal a society from the inside out. Which kind of leaves us with one final big question to chew on. In our own often turbulent times, what can we still learn from a man who faced down chaos and tried to build a better world?